Thanks everyone for tuning in today. So super excited to be here. Yeah, so our Normalize have been utilized, the Node Conductor for about like 2 years in our platform, and we are very happy to be a user and a part of this Conductor community. Yeah, so today Mummoorthy and I will give a talk about how we use Conductor in securing cloud infrastructure and data. Yeah, so agenda. So first we'll give a quick introduction to our company, what is Normalize and ourselves. And then we will overview some basic use cases we need to handle in our product and some associated challenges. Yeah, we will also give some high level architecture, how we use Conductor, and then we can get deep into some real workflows and see how Conductor help us manage and orchestrate our complex workflows. Yeah, and in the end, we will summarize and take questions. Yeah, so Normalize, we are from Normalize, a leading product of cloud-based data security solution. Yeah, so with Normalize, organizations can easily and quickly identify and visualize their cloud data attack surface and get some real-time visibility and control over their secure postures. Yeah, so once customer, for example, they onboard their cloud accounts to our Normalize, they can continuously discover and resources and sensitive data and access paths across the cloud environment and secure their cloud infrastructure at scale. Yeah, so our company was founded in 2021, and as a technology startup, we always committed to leveraging innovative technologies that can help enhance our product and productivities. So that's why when we were searching for a reliable tool to orchestrate and manage our tasks, and we experiment with many different options, and then we set it on Conductor, and we initially use the open source community version, and later on we migrate to the Orkes version. Yeah, so also a bit about ourselves. So my name is Zhang, and today, and we also have Mummoorthy. So we are both founding member of Normalize and have been with the company since the very beginning. So yeah, as we introduced, Mummoorthy currently leads the control plane engineering team, and I'm in charge of the data plane. Yeah, Mummoorthy, maybe you want to talk more detail about our product. Yeah,
thank you, Zhang. So good morning, everyone. Very nice to be here. And to truly understand what the power of Conductor that drives our product, we just wanted to give a quick overview of the product. So can you click once? I think there's some kind of. So we are very much like cloud data security company. And if you look at the left, we support AWS, GCP, Azure, and Snowflake. And one of the goals is to really build this cloud infrastructure in the platform. And the way we achieve it, running through a lot of APIs, connecting to the customer's account with read access, collect a lot of metadata. And just you can imagine, right? AWS has like 200 services, GCP has many services. So we need to be able to efficiently collect a lot of metadata and bring that to our cloud infrastructure graph. And once we have the graph, we allow users to do many activities. You can see data, we collect apps, and many activities are on demand, and we don't do by default. And these are driven by workflows. On the right side, you can see kind of post-processing activities. Once you have this information, out of the box, we support like 500 plus signatures that are patterns that we look for in the graph, and users can really understand and prioritize what we are finding. And through automation, we allow users to create Slack, notification, Jira, and email, and so on. And as you can see, this whole complex product, many of these are actually driven from Conductor in terms of workflows, sequence of steps. And can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is based on the set of actions. So just to show what the product looks like, for example, in the first screenshot, you can see immediately all the exposure, data exposure, and also risk profile of all the accounts, cloud accounts you have across the cloud providers. And in the second screenshot basically shows that what are the data stores you have and what sensitive data you might have and who is creating, who actually wants some of these data stores. And so, yeah, basically in the product, we have a way to understand the cloud security and take a lot of actions and so on. Yeah, back to you about how you use Conductor.
Yeah, sure. So here you can, we show some like examples that demonstrate the need for orchestration tool to manage our workflow and tasks as normalized, right? So the first one, I would call it cloud discovery and scan. So when customer onboards their cloud accounts to our platform, we need to run several tasks, right? And it could be like a list of tasks. Basically, for instance, we must register account and add a record in our backend database. And more importantly, we need to start the asset discovery process to scan, the whole accounts and maybe multiple accounts, right? So we need to dynamically construct what to scan based on different cloud configuration. Yeah, so you can see that all the tasks need to be created dynamically. And similarly, basically, when customer offboards their account, right, we also need to a workflow basically to automatically clean up the resource created by normalizing their environment. For example, we need to delete account information from our backend as well, and so on. So there are a series of tasks we need to do. And another critical component of our product basically to scan the data store to detect sensitive data. For example, customer, they can create a scan schedule on our UI and then trigger a data scan job. So once we receive the scan request, our backend need to perform some tasks for each job. Like we must ensure that the data plane, basically our scanner, is properly deployed in the customer environment, right? If not, for example, once customer do the first time scan, our data plane is not there. So we must set up the data plane by creating configuration, registries, create a repos, and create a resource that will be used for the scan. Yeah, so all these need to be managed by, some tools. Here we use Conductor, right? So once all setup are verified, then we can execute a sub workflow basically to run the scan and subsequently aggregate the result and report them back to our normalized backend. Yeah, so in next, a few slides, we're going to show how it works. But here you can get some like basic ideas, what kind of use cases we're going to handle for example, the data scan. And for our product, we not just scan, for example, sensitive data. We also support some other features. For example, the vulnerability detection is a very important one. So for vulnerability scan, it's more complex compared to our data scan because in addition to like deploying and checking the readiness of the data plane, the scanners, we also need to check, for example, snapshot, whether snapshot is ready. And if it's ready, we need to create a volume. And for example, we also mount the volume to a VM for the scan purpose, right? So all these tasks, they may take some time, especially for example, take snapshot, they may take a very long time. Then how can we check the readiness of these tasks? It's very important. Yeah. So, and also once the scan is complete, right, we need to stop the VM and clean up the resource we created. So that's for vulnerability scan. That's, yeah. And we have some other scans at Normalize. For example, we do log scan, we do database scan, and some other scans. So in later slides, Mummoorthy and I will show more workflow details. But here you can see all of them involve multiple sub workflows and multiple tasks. So therefore, effectively orchestrating and managing these workflows, sub workflows, and individual tasks are super important to our operation. Yeah, so to implement all these features I just mentioned, right, and serve enterprise customers is not easy task. So we face several challenges. Here we list just some of the challenges. Number one, just say scalability. So scalability is very critical challenge for our platform. So it's because the enterprise cloud potentially have you can expect, right? It's had to like hundreds or thousands of cloud accounts, and they have like millions of assets and data stored in their environment. So our platform need to handle thousands of workflows running concurrently, and we may have like millions of workflows, running every day. Yeah, and also we want to, visualize and orchestrate all these workflows. Yeah, so, and once, for example, a task complete or workflow complete, we need to update the status. So, yeah, and the conductor basically here is a very, based on our, use, it's a very scalable solution that can handle large scale workflows and support thousands of concurrent workflows at ease, right? And here we also need to, for example, support multi-region, multi-cloud, right? And conductor basically can deploy on any cloud platform. It's very flexible. Yeah. And yeah, flexibility, right? Flexibility is very essential from an engineering and developer perspective. So workflow related code need to be very flexible because it's sometimes we need to reuse some existing workflow code or tasks, customize and add a few new tasks to create a new workflow based on existing ones. And if you use conductor, okay, it's conductor workflow is defined based on a JSON, right? And it's very easy to read and write, and it supports a large range of task types, making it very easy to customize and create a new workflow. And even for like, yeah, for our like new engineers, it's very easy to pick up and start to use conductor. And dynamicity is also a very important factor, as our platform need to run like multiple workflows in parallel. And there's a number of required sub workflow, and what to do in sub workflow may not be known until runtime, right? So here the good thing is that, okay, the conductor support dynamic fork. So we can easily create dynamic sub workflow, dynamic tasks, right? The beauty here is that, when you create a workflow, you just need to give the workflow definitions, and all the parameters can be, assigned at runtime based on the output of some previous task or previous workflows. So it's very easy to use. Yeah. Yeah, and another thing okay, the visibility. Yeah, visibility is necessary to troubleshooting problem effectively. So the platform need a way to visualize the execution of workflows and quickly identify which task fail and why, right, sometimes. And here the conductor basically provides us real-time visibility into the status of workflow. It's very easy for us to see, okay, one task complete, and we go right to next task. Yeah, like that, and making it easy to track the progress and troubleshooting issues. Yeah, and like Viren just mentioned, showed, right? Once a task failed, we can easily find, okay, why it failed, what's the reason, and yeah, from the output. So it allows us to gain insight into workflow performance and also identify, some areas to fix or improve. Yeah, and yeah, another critical challenge here is that, okay, we want like failure or exception handling. So in some cases, the workflow could fail, and our platform need to know, what action to take. So here, using conductor is very easy for us to define the failure workflow. For example, let's say one scan failed, then we need to, for example, do the resource cleanup, or aggregates the failure result and send to our backend. We can add all those operations in the failure workflow. Yeah. So that's basically a few challenges here. And basically, yeah, conductor help us solve all those challenges. And here we show some, the architecture diagram give a high level architecture of how we use conductor. So we have the normalized backend basically to create a conductor workflow definitions and trigger a workflow by sending it to the Orkes, for example, conductor. Then the conductor can invoke the action or the task in the scan target environment. So usually for us, we use, mostly HTTP task or a Lambda task in our case. So once the task is complete, it's going to call an API at our normalized backend to handle the results. And then, further, our backend is going to update the conductor, say, okay, when this task is complete or this workflow is complete. So the conductor knows it's done and we can move to the next step. Yeah, and sometimes, we also have we use dynamic task, dynamic sub-workflow a lot, right? So it's going to create, they're going to create based on the result of early tasks, and for each task or sub-workflows, the input could be the output from previous task as well. Yeah, so for some complex workflows, we will have multiple tier hierarchy of the sub-workflow. Yeah, and also I think another good thing is the UI. So we can visualize the workflow details from the Conduct workflow UI. So that's the architecture of how we use Conductor. Yeah, so here we give a very show just one real workflow we use in our data scan, as we just mentioned, right? So first we create a data scan job. So here you can see customer can select, multiple accounts we want to scan. So you can see here, they have multiple accounts. And for each account, we need to handle it separately. The good thing is that, okay, we can use dynamic fork to create, multiple account scan basically in parallel. So it's going to fork a account sub-workflow called account sub-workflow. And in each account, first we check, data plane deployment. Once it's ready, another fork basically is on the region, because, there could be one account, they could have data stored in different regions, right? And assume, okay, so here for each region, we further fork, dynamic fork to, the region workflow. And we deploy, scanner. And for each region, there could be multiple data stored. Then we have another layer, basically data store dynamic fork. And we scan each data store. You can see here, we can, allow all the data store scan basically in parallel. Yeah, so there's through multiple layer dynamic fork. Yeah. So that's one example of how we implement the data scan workflow. And Mummoorthy can also talk about the cloud scan workflow. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Zhang. So in the cloud scan, we basically encountered a kind of a different problem. If you look at the left side, basically this is a simplified version of a scan that we run for, getting the metadata from clouds. So we start the workflow, do a little bit of access checks, and collect some summary data, and then we need to scan. And now if you look at the scan stuff, the problem is kind of two ways. One is that we have many services to scan. If you look at AWS, we have S3, EC2, and the list is long, almost 200 plus. In GCP also similar case. And the challenge is not only the scale, it's also dependency between services that we want to scan. For example, one example is that, security groups, right? The firewall rules that we specify in AWS, that has to be scanned first before maybe, scan services that make use of that properties. So there is a alignment of how parallel you can go. There is also requirement to keep them in a dependency order. So we face a challenge in the beginning when you're trying to scale, put everything together. And so first is this building up this structure in the dependency. It was kind of easy to set this up when we know all the services to scan. But there was a challenge. And can you go to the next one? Yeah, in many situations, we don't have to scan all, we have to only scan partially. But this partial list may not be known until runtime. And in this case, 2, 5, 6, and 8 have to be scanned, but we cannot really break the dependency. And we can also not create all the possible workflows. So one of the very useful tools that we found is, and if you click on the next one, is basically dynamic tasks that using dynamic fork and also dynamic tasks and also task inputs. The way we do it is we have this one API call that we make and figure out what services to be scanned and basically plug that into all of the stages and what these inputs are, what the task inputs are. That will figure it out dynamically. And what happens using this approach is that for every stage, we control exactly what services need to be scanned in a dynamic way. This all happens real time. And again, this list goes up and down, and it's been really working out very well for us. I wanted to show maybe quickly how it looks like in real production. And if you go to the next one. Yeah, so this is basically one type of cloud scan that we're launching. As you can see, that it has 45 tasks and 10 stages. And it can get very complex, and Conductor is able to handle all of that. So if you go to the next one, so this is a full workflow. This is a partial workflow. In this case, only 8 services are selected for scan automatically through dynamic tasks and input parameters. We are able to control what to run, kind of a sample workflow to show we were able to run only 8 tasks, but you can see the dependency, the structure is maintained as part of this, and so that we don't have any data dependency issues. So yeah, this has been in production for a long time for us. Okay, so we're almost at the end. Quick, summary in the sense that I think our space is different. I think one of the questions was, this is a cloud data security problem, and how Conductor has fit into many of the things that we are doing. And it's very flexible, scalable. I think one of the key points is that we started with 2 types of workflows, cloud scan data, and we're almost like 40 plus workflow types, including vulnerability log scan. And almost any new types of scans that we're doing will definitely start from Conductor workflow, because that explains logically we can arrange things. And the visualization has been very useful across everybody, not only engineering, and also support looks at them and figures out what's going on. And we also expose certain things to customers to see the progress. We didn't put it into the presentation today, but I'm happy to talk a little later. And maybe if finally anybody, across the company, everybody can, anyone can refer to these workflows and point out, we have a problem with the S3 or EC2 scan. So this is it's been an open book. Definitely, one of the things we have seen is that it reduced a lot of log debugging, and instead of we use Conductor UI and identify what's going on. Okay, I'm going to stop. Yang, anything to add in terms of summary?
Yeah, I think, another maybe good thing about Conductor is that, okay, it's very flexible. For example, you can assign a task or workflow as optional, right? If, in our case, for example, some task could fail, and we don't want one failure basically affect the overall scan. In that way, we can make one task optional. In that way, even it fails, we can still get, the result from other scan result from other data stores or other accounts, and show the results. Yeah, and also the Conductor, for example, support retry. That's very important. In our case, sometimes we have like API error, 502, 504. If we can do a retry, then okay, the result can be sent back to our backend properly. Yeah, all those very good and features, and also we can set, for example, the timeout, right? Sometimes because you don't want to waste the computation resource, you can set a timeout, say okay, like 1 hour or 30 minutes. Then if it cannot complete, it just terminates the task or workflows. In that way, you can control your computation resources. Yeah, I think that pretty much about how we use Conductor.
Yeah, you can take the questions.
Thank you so much, Normalize team, for sharing that. I think that's very insightful. We do have an array of questions that's there for you guys. So starting with, it looks like that you are dealing with quite complex workflows. So how did Conductor as a platform, if it did, help you also with debugging in terms of like issues related to production?
I can
quickly
say
ahead.
something. Yeah, so I think so first is to really know what's going on in production, we have a good idea on how many workflows are failing, right? Very high level, how many workflows are failing and what types of workflows are failing. So it's very easy to just narrow down if anything is wrong in production, what is wrong, and that we can immediately get. Another advantage is that the conductor actually gets a feedback from what went wrong. For example, if something is failing, let's say S3 scan is failing, is it an internal server error or is it an API rate limit error? Those information is right available in the conductor UI. So the amount of time that we go to log, ELK stack is very limited right now. It's kind of reducing. Conductor itself can bring a lot of information to the work. So it really helps.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have one question from Sid, and he wants to understand that is control plane also your management plane? Where does customer information and entitlement reside?
Yes. Yeah, control plane is very kind of equivalent to management plane. And the customer data comes to us, but only the metadata. We never bring actual data from customers. And that's why I think Yang talked about the scan that happens inside the customer environment. So yeah, to summarize, yes, management it's a management plane, and only the metadata from the cloud is brought into the management plane.
Awesome. Yang, this is a question directed to you. This is from Parthiv, and he's asking that, are you also creating the integration to fetch the data from a different platform using Conductor?
Yes, yeah. So basically, yeah, so currently, for example, we support AWS, GCP, Azure, right? So we fetch the data from them. And also we're working on other like data warehouse, like Snowflake, Databricks, all those data, popular data stores. And we use, Conductor to manage all the workflows, yeah, to fetch the data.
Awesome. This is another question that we have is, what does your plane include on-premise infrastructure and on-premise workloads as well?
Yeah, so currently I think we focus on public cloud, right? AWS, GCP, Azure, but we can also support the on-prem infrastructure and on-prem like data centers, those kind of scan and yeah, data retrieving, yeah.
And there's a follow-up question to it, that what triggers a scan? Is there a benchmark that you have for running a scan for a particular type of service in AWS?
Sorry, what's the question?
The question is that what triggers a scan? Is there any benchmark for running a scan for a particular type of service in AWS?
Yeah, so if customer, for example, onboard Normalize, right, onboard their account to Normalize platform. So first, we're going to automatically trigger a cloud scan to detect all the, to discover all the assets. For example, the data stores, for the like buckets in AWS. AWS environment will detect, for example, buckets and also the RDS, all the databases. They will be able to show it on UI. Then customer can create a scan profile or scan schedule to select what kind of data store they want to trigger for data scan to detect sensitive data. So it's triggered from, for example, our UI. And yeah, so that's how it's been triggered. And is there a benchmark for running a scan for a particular type? Mummoorthy, what do you think? What's benchmark?
I think we do provide the benchmark. Yeah, we collect a lot of internal scale testing and metrics. It's not publicly available.
Yes, yeah, we have that kind of benchmark data for just internal analysis, but I don't think we share it with outside. Yeah.
Okay. That's it for now. We can definitely take up more questions towards the end. Yeah, thanks again for that wonderful talk and for sharing your experience of how you've been implementing Conductor. It's really fascinating.